John Maynard Keynes didn't just revolutionize economics, he rewired the way governments think about fear, power, and money. He wasn't a politician, and he wasn't a revolutionary in the conventional sense. He was something rarer, a man who taught entire nations how to spend their way out of despair. For centuries, debt was a sin, and deficits were seen as moral failings. Balanced budgets were considered the mark of integrity, a kind of fiscal purity. But Keynes flipped that script. He argued that spending during crises wasn't reckless, it was responsible. He made debt sound like duty and saving sound selfish. In doing so, he fundamentally reshaped capitalism itself. Welcome to Deep Finance Pro, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Our story begins amid the ashes of the Great Depression. Picture 1930, banks collapsing, factories silent, millions out of work. The old economic playbook, built on Adam Smith and the invisible hand, promised automatic recovery. Supply and demand would balance themselves, prices would drop, people would buy again, and the economy would heal, in theory. But theory doesn't put food on a table. In reality, demand didn't return, factories stayed closed, and terrified families clinging to their meager savings stopped spending. The economy didn't correct itself, it froze. Keynes looked at this frozen world and realized something radical. Markets aren't perfect. They don't always self-correct. Sometimes they get trapped in loops of fear. When spending stops, businesses stop hiring. When hiring stops, incomes fall. When incomes fall, spending drops even further. A vicious spiral, a kind of economic black hole. Keynes understood that the problem wasn't thrift or discipline, it was demand. Recessions happen when everyone tries to save at once, and paradoxically, this collective caution makes everyone poorer. He called it the paradox of thrift. What makes sense for one household, cutting expenses, hoarding cash, becomes disastrous when everyone does it. Because one person's spending is another person's income. When spending dies, so does the heartbeat of the economy. Keynes proposed a radical solution. If private demand collapses, public demand must step in. Governments should borrow, hire workers, fund projects, and put money back into circulation. That money would create jobs. Jobs create income. Income fuels spending, and spending restarts the engine. To traditional economists, this was madness. Deficits were dangerous. Debt was a curse. But Keynes argued it was all about timing. Governments should act counter-cyclically, spend in downturns, save during booms. Stimulus and restraint, not one or the other, but both in harmony. He likened the economy to a car. Normally, the private sector drives, but when it stalls, the government must turn the key, inject fuel until the engine roars again. Then it steps back. In the general theory of employment, interest, and money, Keynes laid out this logic as a complete system. He introduced aggregate demand, the total spending from consumers, businesses, and government. When it falls, output and employment fall. The cure? Boost spending until confidence returns. But Keynes went further. Economics isn't just numbers, it's psychology. Markets are driven by animal spirits, instincts, hopes, fears that move people to invest or hide their money. Equations alone can't fix that. Action does. Government spending sends a message: we believe in recovery. That belief itself becomes economic energy. Confidence, not austerity, ends recessions. Yet in the 1930s, most leaders clung to austerity. Britain returned to the gold standard, choking exports. Germany slashed spending to show discipline, driving its economy into chaos. In the US, Herbert Hoover resisted intervention, convinced the market would self-correct. It didn't. By 1933, 1 in 4 Americans was unemployed. Banks failed, wiping out life savings. The free market had frozen. That's when Franklin D. Roosevelt stepped in, a politician, not an economist. But his instincts mirrored Keynes. When fear stops spending, governments must spend for the people. Roosevelt's New Deal wasn't a program, it was a philosophy. Massive projects like the Tennessee Valley Authority and the Hoover Dam employed millions. The Works Progress Administration hired artists, teachers, builders. Government wages flowed directly into the economy's bloodstream. Slowly, it worked. Confidence returned. But the ultimate proof came with war. World War II forced governments worldwide to spend without hesitation. Factories churned tanks, ships, planes. Borrowing skyrocketed. Unemployment vanished. Total war became the ultimate Keynesian experiment, and it worked. After the war, Keynes's ideas shaped the modern world. Bretton Woods, post-war reconstruction, the welfare state, decades of prosperity. He gave capitalism a second life, managed by governments, guided by policy, showing that motion, not austerity, creates prosperity. Yet every tool has a cost. Once governments learn that spending can solve any crisis, restraint becomes optional. Stimulus became a habit, and restraint is almost forgotten. Yet Keynes's genius remains. He taught that economics is more than numbers, it's belief. Confidence keeps economies alive. Without it, markets die. And that's the paradox. The man who saved capitalism also made it fragile, dependent, mortal. John Maynard Keynes, the architect of spending, the prophet of demand, the man who reshaped the heartbeat of the modern economy. If this gave you a new perspective on how money, power, and governments shape our world, hit subscribe to Deep Finance Pro, where we explore the stories behind the numbers and uncover the secrets of the financial world.